growth spurts are painful. But do they have to hurt our ears, too? Hey, there's a shady motel on Colfax. Nope, not the one you're thinking of, the other one. What's so bad at one motel that the city of Denver wants it shut down?
I also kind of want to put a normal face on it to get rid of some of the stigma.
So many of you were moved by our conversation about opioid addiction, we're bringing a former colleague back to share some more. And Nate Dogg, not the rapper, the snowboarder, who also got famous in the 90s, starts a new streak this year that requires a lot of sitting.
You know, it's just how we start this season.
And it's how we start next. You don't have to crane your neck to see all the cranes in the skyline. There are plenty of construction projects in the metro area. I said there are plenty of construction projects that don't have cranes, like the ones at work that never seem to stop drilling behind your desk or in the studio, or in the rebuilds in your neighborhood where the noise can be really annoying. You hear that sound? Wait. That is not happening right now. You'd expect sounds like that from a construction site during the day, but what you're hearing is from video I shot when I was watching what appeared to be construction after dark. This is a small retail townhome construction site in a neighborhood at 8th and Bel Air, just across from the massive 9th and Colorado project at the site of the old University Hospital. At 10:36 this week, 2 life-size Tonka trucks were still being played with, and surprisingly, this would be okay as long as the sound is quieter than 50 to 55 decibels. Basically, the sound of me talking right now.
I would say it's highly unlikely that the reverse beeping of a life-size Tonka truck would meet those limitations, but we would have to conduct a noise measurement and a noise reading to confirm that.
Nicole Hogg is with Denver's Department of Environmental Health. The same people who do food inspections also investigate construction noise. Okay, it's 10:36 at night. Who am I supposed to call to make the noise stop?
If you are hearing excessive noise at any hour, it's best to call 311 to file a noise complaint. If you want an immediate response or if there's a disturbance of the peace issue that's occurring, you can also call the police department.
So when is too late to beep, beeping? Denver allows construction noise from 7 a.m. until 5 p.m.? Wrong. 6 p.m.? Nope. Actually 9 p.m. And on weekends, it's 8 to 5. There have been 183 complaints about construction noise this year. That's 57 more than last year. Fitting that the number is higher than the 50 to 55 decibels allowed. What I learned is you cannot really stop the noise. You can only get them in trouble after the fact. 311 operators only answer the phone until 8 p.m. during the week. Depending on the complaint, a contractor can get a warning, a fine, or an order to stop work altogether. Well, I'm going to let you in on a little secret. There is some shady stuff that goes on in motels on Colfax. At least so I hear. There's one motel on East Colfax near the Denver-Aurora line with 25 times more crime reported to police than its nearest competitor. Now the city is considering shutting it down, and our Eddie Randall couldn't wait to go visit.
For years, these motels were a destination for families traveling on historic Colfax Avenue.
And they started to degrade in their upkeep, but also the occupants. A lot of prostitution and drugs, and that's continued until the present day.
Many now call these motels a destination for criminal activity, and the 7 Star seems to see a lot of it. Tom Feasing is with the East Colfax Neighborhood Association. They're fed up with what goes on and want to see change.
And right on this street, I will witness drug deals taking place right in front of me as I drive by.
Lots of drug trafficking, lots of prostitution.
I see what's going on. I know what's going on. But
Donald Harmson has lived at this motel for a few days. He sees it differently.
I can have someone to lay my head instead of being homeless out here.
We analyzed crime at 7 Star, and 232 crimes were reported in the last 5 years. 152 were reported so far this year, including drugs, robbery, assault, and prostitution, according to DPD. We compared the reported crimes at 7 Star to 2 other motels in the area. Ahwahnee had 4 calls this year, and Sand and Sage 6 calls.
There's only so much grit that you can take as a resident.
The neighborhood was so fed up they filed complaints, and now the city is taking the motel to court. They will also have to prove to the Department of Excise and License why they should keep their license.
We hope to have hundreds of residents show up at that hearing.
But at some point, we have to stop it. We have to cut it off. and make it a better neighborhood for everybody that lives here.
For Next, I'm Eddie Randall.
So why just this motel and not any other than you're suspicious about? For one, a loud group of neighbors who had stats to back them up, and also because the city believes it has proof that the people who run this motel know about the crime that's happening and do nothing to prevent it. So what you doing Tuesday, November 21st? Want to go to the mall? Want to go to Colorado Mills Mall? 197 days after closing because of one of the state's most expensive hailstorms, Colorado Mills will reopen the doors the Tuesday before Black Friday. The release we got said the common areas and entries will be open on that Tuesday, and stores will open on their own schedule. So if nothing else, it'll at least be a warm place to walk around. Well, the Colorado Department of Corrections is ending long-term solitary confinement. It's something the department's executive director, Rick Ramish, has been pushing for a while now. And it's something we didn't know was official until he wrote an op-ed about it in the New York Times and then sat down to answer questions with our Anastasia Bolton.
Do you believe solitary confinement to be quote-unquote torture?
Yes, in a sense, mental torture. I believe it to be very harmful to the mental capabilities of individuals.
The overhaul of solitary confinement in Colorado prisons was the brainchild of former prison chief Tom Clements. He was murdered in 2013 by a former inmate who spent years in solitary confinement. Ramish believes long-term confinement only worsens an inmate's mental illness and does nothing to solve the problem. You'll hear more from the head of Colorado's Department of Corrections on 9 News at 9 and 10. So there's an election next month. In Denver, you're seeing ads for bonds. Not a new James Bond movie, money bonds, $900 million worth. Mayor Michael Hancock wants to fix up a bunch of stuff in the city and has his face on a TV ad asking you to vote yes. So politics guy Brandon Rittiman did what he does with political ads, putting them through the truth test.
It's such a big bundle of things the city wants to fix that they needed 7 different ballot questions and a made-up word to sell it to you.
It's our Denver structure, and measures 2A through 2G will repair and improve all of it.
A yes vote on each of those 7 ballot questions would approve bonds to improve parks, police stations, roads, Denver Health, the zoo, and more. It's a big list, and we've got details on those projects in this story on 9news.com if it helps you decide. But broadly speaking, the ad does a fair job describing what the money goes towards. But then the mayor says this.
And because it's a bond, tax rates stay the same.
Well, that is the city's plan, but it's an overpromise to present it as a guarantee. The city wants permission to borrow $937 million to fix a bunch of stuff. And just like your home loan, they have to pay it all back, plus interest. In the end, the full cost with interest could reach almost $1.7 billion in the coming decades. The city finance department says it can afford that because it paid off some old debt. And also, property values in Denver are way up, which means the city's property tax brings in more money without needing to raise the rates. But here's the thing. What goes up can come down. If property values fell from where they are today, a big market correction, or worse, the next Great Recession, the city would have less property tax money and could, in theory, be forced to raise tax rates to pay back these new bonds. To reduce the risk of that, the city finance folks say they designed this plan so they could afford to pay off the debt even if there is a slowdown in property values. They say they only need property values to go up 2% every other year to avoid having to raise taxes, which is conservative when you consider the actual numbers averaged almost 6.5% a year growth for the past 5 years and about 5.5% for the last 16 years. Still, if property values turned flat or down, there is some risk the city would need to raise taxes to cover the new debt. This ad makes it sound like there's no risk involved, but there is in fact some risk, however small, of taxes having to go up. Bottom line, there's nothing new about borrowing money to pay for expensive stuff, but this ad glosses over the fact that any big borrowing plan comes with some amount of risk. With your truth test, Brandon Rittiman, 9 News.
Conversation about her own personal struggles struck a chord with a lot of you. Tonight, former education reporter Dana Knowles continues to educate us on addiction. And ski season means Nate Dogg season. Nope, not that one, this one. The one who's always at the front of the line on opening day. So we asked the question you're wondering, doesn't he have a job? next. Nate Dogg. It's a name familiar to hip-hop fans and to Colorado ski junkies. The snowboarder is well known for being the first person in line for the first chair just about every new ski season. Not last year, but the 20 years before that. He's picking up fresh this year, first in line at A Basin. We want to know why, but really, how?
It's just how we start the season.
You can't start the ski season in Colorado without Nate Dogg. That's with 4 G's, by the way. He was on the first chair of every Colorado ski season from 1996 until last year when the streak ended.
We've stayed up to 1 week in advance for this first chair. It seems that a lot of other people that are motivated to try for first chair usually don't get there until the night before. So if we put in those extra days of effort, then we usually are guaranteed that slot.
That means putting in recon at the local ski areas, seeing how far along they are in their snowmaking. So how exactly can Nate and his friends spend days sitting in the freezing cold waiting for opening day? In other words, don't they have jobs?
I can speak with my work and be like, first chair's coming up. I'm obviously keeping you in the loop, but that's more important than work to me.
Nate says he's not at the point where he needs to choose between his job or first chair, but says if he did, he'd be willing to lose his job to keep the streak going. It is, after all, his legacy, and he's not ready to give it up, even when he has to give it up.
I had a vision of walking to the first chair in a cane and just to ride the first chair, but not to actually snowboard down. Just like that'll be my last claim year when I'm like struggling to walk.
Nate Dogg with, 3, 4 G's? Impressive stuff. Love to see you out there each year. The weekend, so far so good. We can see it from here amongst that hazy sunshine across much of the state. As we look at temperatures, they're still in the low 60s here in Denver, Fort Collins, and Greeley too. About 59 in Boulder, but sunshine across the entire state. The winds have picked up just a bit for us, especially around the foothills up in the mountains. Berthoud Pass, about 41 mile-per-hour speeds. And now I'm looking at our next storm. It's in the Pacific Northwest, but it is fast and furious and slides into Colorado tomorrow afternoon. This front is going to cool us off and dramatically kick up the winds. Look at this. By tomorrow, right after lunchtime or so, they kick up 20 to 30 miles per hour around the metro area, slowly tapering off and weakening just a bit by this time tomorrow night. 54 on tap tomorrow. It will be a cool one. Daytime highs in the 70s and 80s in southeastern Colorado, 30s and 40s up in the mountains. We warm things up for the second half of the weekend, and 70s and sunshine for the beginning of next week.
Danielle, I heard you laughing. You're not a serious skier or snowboarder unless you're willing to go up with a cane.
I mean, Nate Dogg, 3 G's, 4 G's. He's the man.
Thank you, Danielle. Former 9 News reporter Dana Knowles is used to telling stories about education, so leave it to her to educate us. We reintroduced her familiar face yesterday when she talked with Kyle about a side of her you would never know, her addiction to pain pills. Tonight, we want to share more of her conversation with Kyle with you.
Why have you decided that this is something that you want to share with people? For so many folks, even after they've largely beaten it back, there's that sense of shame and there's the stigma about it, and they decide this can be a private thing, my friends and family. Why public?
Just like you said, for me, it helps me let go of a lot of the shame. And it helps me, it's very cathartic. I'm doing it really for selfish reasons, and that's to help myself let go of the shame. I don't want to hold on to it anymore because there's a ton of shame associated with addiction. And I also kind of want to put a normal face on it to get rid of some of the stigma. I think a lot of people still assume that, addicts or alcoholics look a certain way, and we know these days these statistics are startling with how many people are dying of overdoses from opiates. And I'm kind of at a point where I feel like I can do something to help myself and other people, even if it's just a little bit. If I can get the message out there and tell people it's really, really hard to do this work, but if you do it, it's going to be so much better for you.
You managed to not only repair your mind and your body, but you've repaired some of the rifts in your family. Stayed married, got help for your kids. How did that happen?
We found out about the program for our kids when I was in treatment. It's the Betty Ford Center for Kids, and it's like a 5-day seminar where kids of alcoholics and addicts, whether or not they're in recovery, kids go to learn about the disease from a kid perspective. They learn that it's not their fault. They learn that it's not good to hide. They learn that they need to be honest, and they learn that they need to express themselves and feel comfortable expressing themselves so that they don't hold on to stuff.
Before we got started here, we were having a conversation with our mutual friend Kim Christensen, who was talking about the immense pressure specifically for mothers.
Yes.
That this, what's the car company slogan? The relentless pursuit of perfection.
Right.
That's like the American slogan now.
Absolutely, yeah.
You feel like that contributed to what you were dealing with?
A lot of it, absolutely, absolutely. And sort of this pressure to be the perfect mom. I was talking to a friend about this the other day. You're sort of, as a mom, expected to be engaged and happy and signing up for things at school. And I think it's good to participate, but also find what's comfortable for you.
Everyone, like I said, always dreads the 13th, and especially in October. It's one of those stereotypes of, oh my goodness.
She can't wait for Friday the 13th, and we can't wait to share her good news. Next. On Fridays, we always look for good news to share with you. It's a great way to end the work week, but on Friday the 13th? Well, Kelly emailed us today to let us know it's her birthday. It's been a rough week for her, one that involved 2 funerals. And on a day with a lot of superstition, she's just super thankful.
Hi, even though it's Friday the 13th, a day that I normally dread, it's also my birthday. I typically avoid my birthday, but after going to 2 funerals in 2 days, it makes me grateful for today. It makes you a little nervous, Friday the 13th, but I'm like, you know what, it's my birthday and I'm gonna proudly announce it to the world. I'm grateful for life and appreciative of all those around me. I'm so very blessed for all that I have and all that I am. I couldn't ask for a stronger, more supportive family, and I'm so grateful to have them. I'm grateful to my husband, who I met 20 years ago today. Everyone, like I said, always dreads the 13th, and especially in October. It's one of those stereotypes of, oh my goodness. It's special, and to know that I share it with one of the girls that I work with, and Sammy Hagar, because love me some Sammy, to make others happy. That's what makes me happy in my heart. And to make pumpkin bread for my coworkers. It's my birthday, I'm proud of it. Shout it from the rooftops if I wasn't scared of heights.
Happy birthday. Earlier this year, I was given an unusual assignment. It went something like this. Marshall, we want you to go watch a rock. That became known as the Target Rock in a median at Colorado Mills Mall, high-centering drivers one by one, including the one that I captured during a Facebook Live in February. Next, viewers inspired some change. The mall moved the rock to a retirement rock community. Well, now the Target stump, we can actually call this the Baker neighborhood stump, perhaps? A truck stuck on a trunk near Bayard and Logan. We're chalking this one up to childhood, or maybe a next viewer's sense of humor. A sign of what must be the quietest place in the library. That's next. It's a sign that people need to look somewhere else in Fort Collins Old Town Library to do their work, because this bathroom stall is currently unavailable. Lisa Ritter saw the sign, thought it was funny, and was kind enough to send us a pic. If you see a sign, send it to us with the hashtag HeyNext, or email us at 9news.com, and maybe don't do work in the bathroom. If you're wondering where Kyle is, he's back Sunday night with Kim after the Broncos game. They'll be sitting right there after the Broncos win.